Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. We are here tonight with our good friend Kim from My Other's Keeper. Hello, Kim.
Hello,
Lisa,
Echo. How you doing?
good. Lisa's AI music and visuals. And let me go to this channel because I'm wondering if it is. No, it is not. This is my second channel. Okay, yes, it may be.
Mm.
It may be Married in Arkansas's second channel. Okay.
Oh,
Let
okay.
me let me go ahead and she'll let us know here in the chat in just a minute if that is her. And hello, Nancy Smith, and hello, Isabella. How are you? And let me go ahead and make her a moderator. Hello, Austin. Welcome. Yes, it is Married in Arkansas. Okay. Good, good, good. Oh, I'm so proud of you for starting a second channel. She is really talented with the AI stuff.
Oh,
So
cool.
that is really good. I am so proud of you. She just created it
Nice.
today. All right. Well, I made you a moderator on that channel as well, so you can do hashtag echo and it'll drop the link and we'll get you some
Ooh.
subscribers tonight.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. I have Kim's channel pinned at the top of the chat. So if you're not connected with Kim, please jump over there and get connected with her. She says, I don't know why it's using the other name instead of my original one. I'm not sure either. All right. And then Anderson's weather, cloudy with a temperature of 48. The wind is blowing from the west at 7 miles an hour, and the current humidity is 30. And we are at 53 degrees here in South Georgia. What is your temperature there in Canada?
Well, let me just look. I have to change my setting to look at Fahrenheit here. So, because I'm currently where are we here? We're currently -2 Celsius, which is about 32 degrees. It's pretty much zero for you.
Ooh, freezing.
So, yeah.
Hello, Northern
No, that's
Woman.
nice. Compared to
And
what we've
hello,
been, that's
Lisa's got
nice.
style. Welcome, welcome. Make sure that y'all are using the hashtag echo to drop your links and everybody connect with everybody else. And
Thank you,
Austin just
Austin.
went over to Kim's and jumped on her channel.
Nice.
Okay,
Thank you
good.
so much,
Thank
sir.
you so much. All right, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about mental health. Um, I am just learning a lot about some of the reasons that people struggle with mental health and some of the things that kind of cause it to happen or somebody had told me the other day that if you don't feel your feelings, if you suppress your feelings, then it's going to come out like in the form of anxiety
Hmm.
because it will make you be anxious and nervous and kind of jittery and things like that. And so it's better to just go ahead and feel those feelings, whether they're positive or negative, and just let yourself feel them, to begin with.
And actually,
But
in the mental
anyway,
health community, we tell people don't think of them as positive or negative feelings. Feelings are just feelings because sometimes you
right.
need to feel that anger. You need to feel that sadness. It's positive to allow it to get out. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was kind of raised in a family that always said I was too emotional.
Oh,
I was too dramatic. I was too like everything, I was too sensitive, too dramatic. And hello, Isabella. And so I learned at a very young age not to really express my feelings too much. And I almost got to the point where I didn't really have excitement or joy
Yep.
or real
Nope.
anger. I was just kind of middle of the road, just kind of like I didn't really have much reaction to things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, which now I'm learning that, it's okay to feel whatever it is that you feel.
Hmm.
If you are upset by something or you feel like someone has, mistreated you or, um, it's okay to open your mouth and say, no, I can't let you treat me like that, or I can't let that continue.
Absolutely.
Hi, Huga Homestead. Whereas I think with the way that I was raised, I just, I didn't want to get in any trouble or make anything any worse by expressing anything,
Yeah.
So it was easier just to kind of be like, okay, nothing bothers me. I'm perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
For a long time
Um,
when I was growing up, having emotions was held against me. If I was really happy, I was told, "Oh, what are you feeling so good about?" And when I was sad, they would try make you worse. Just kind of, it was a needle poking kind of thing. So I learned how to stuff my emotions, and especially the negative, which is why I say, I don't call them that anymore. Especially those emotions where um, most people don't feel happy, right? So when the way
right,
emotions work is it's a pendulum, right? So the less you feel of one, the less you're going to feel of the other. They're two sides of the same emotional coin, and they both have to be swinging in order to feel much of either.
right. And I think that it's easy to kind of get in that where you're not even being honest with yourself what you're
Absolutely.
really feeling because you've learned to mask it and to make it be more acceptable, to what the people around you. And I still sometimes, especially even like with my daughter, sometimes she'll say to me, I can't talk to you about that right now because you're just too emotional about it. And it's like, sometimes I feel like, well, but I should be emotional about it.
Yep.
If I feel like I've been, hurt or wronged or something like that, um, exactly. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hi, Daniel Barry. So I know that you have struggled with bipolar.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that and your experiences with that.
Well, actually, I don't like the way I tend to do stuff is I try to couch things in a way that makes me feel better about it. Um, if I
Okay.
say the word I suffer with, then I feel more
Hmm.
like I'm suffering. So what I just tell people is I live with bipolar, because
Yeah.
whether I'm happy or sad, it's there. And anyway, so living with bipolar disorder, um, when I was in about grade 7, I fell and hit my head on the sidewalk really hard. Um, Actually, let me back up a few decades before that. When I was very, very little, I was 4 years old, and I was sexually assaulted by a cousin of mine. We've been on the air for nine minutes. We can say that word, can't we? I just got you
Sure.
demonetized. Sorry. Anyway, I was assaulted by a cousin of mine when I was 4, and I didn't remember it at all until I was about 16 years old. In that period of time, though, um, I lived in a home, like I said, that was very dysfunctional. My dad was grooming my sister for her eventual essays from the time she was 12 till she was 18. And he started picking on me when I was about 12, but by then I'd have none of it. He hadn't groomed me the same way he had her. So I was very fortunately much more protected, I guess. God really protected me through that. Um, my parents split up when I was 16. And it was at that point that my dad got arrested. My parents got divorced. And through doing some healing and that kind of stuff, like some psychological healing and praying and kind of growth that way, I was standing in the living room and I just looked at my mom and I'm like, oh, this happened when I was 4. And it's just like suddenly there I was, this 4-year-old little girl, and this bad thing was happening to me. So that was terrible. Now, when I was about 6 years old, and I'm going to tell you these things which don't seem to make a difference, but they do. When I was about 6 years old, I had scarlet fever. And that is very uncommon in this day and age. But in the early 70s or mid 70s, it would have been. It happened. They called it scarlatina. And I looked up the word scarlatina, and it's simply another name for scarlet fever. So I mentioned to my mom, I'm like, Mom, I had scarlet fever as a kid. No, you didn't. You had scarlatina. I'm like, Google it. It's the same thing. So
semantics.
Exactly. So the reason I mentioned those, as well as this head injury when I was a little older, is that there are causes and then there are triggers. Chances are, like, there's a good chance that if you develop a mental illness like bipolar, schizophrenia, chronic depressive disorder, like anything like that that's chemical in your brain, chances are you've had a biological component. And then the trigger is the environmental, whatever it was, that would cause it to come out. So I had a severe childhood illness, I had abuse, and I had a head injury. Those 3 things were like the perfect storm as to what happened. So I started seeing the signs of bipolar, the depressions and panic attacks when I was in about grade 7. And so I'd have been about 13 years old or so. I hit my head real hard. It was really, really rough. I attempted to remove myself from the planet after a fight my dad and I had at the kitchen table. He was yelling at me. I was yelling at him. And I said, so tell me what you really think of me. And he says, well, I wish you were never born. I'm like, just what every 13-year-old kid wants to hear, right? Yeah. From their father, who's a pastor. So, it's all good.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I went to his office and I took a small razor with me and I was going to give him his wish. And then God brought a song to my mind called I'm Giving Up, Giving Up. And it's by an artist named Brian Duncan. And it brought me out of that immediate panic and that terrible, deep depressive state. And it kind of got my brain into a part that said, hold it. There is more to life than this. Do you really want to give him the satisfaction? So no, I didn't. So then I lived a number of years beyond that. And in grade 12, I was studying for my English final exam for the first semester of English. And I was looking at my notes and I didn't recognize my handwriting. I knew nothing that I was looking at, not a thing. And again, I panicked and I'm like, okay, my life has deteriorated to such a point that I can't even read my own writing. And I knew that it was my writing because I knew, but it didn't look like anything. It didn't look like words. So I panicked and I attempted the same thing as in grade 7, except this time my dog came and she licked my wounds and she stuck her head on my lap and looked at me like with those great big puppy dog eyes that said she'd be lost without me. And my dog saved my life. She got me out of that panic and again, settled me down to the point where I could reach out to someone. And this time I reached out to the guy I was supposed to marry. I was engaged to a guy when I was in grade 12. He was about 23-ish, 24-ish, and I was like 17, 18, kind of like that 5.5-year difference. And so I phoned him up, and he didn't want anything to do with my little girl high school problems. So, because he was playing video games with the boys, and that's what's important,
Mm,
you know. Yeah,
mm,
the guys, they're the important thing. So I phoned an ex-boyfriend,
mm.
and he traveled from 2 towns away from where I lived, and he made a 40-minute drive in about 25. And he just sat with me on the kitchen floor until my mom came home from work. She was working nights. So he just sat with me. We just sat, didn't talk, didn't do anything, just there was this other human being here. And that's exactly what I needed right then. And neither of those
Mhm.
attempts were after a period of planning or depression or whatever that a lot of people will say they're going to look for the signs of, and that kind of stuff. Um, it was
Right.
just this knee-jerk reaction and the absolute conviction that the world would be better off without me. Um,
Mm.
when my mom came home from work, she shooed the guy away, and she just wanted to talk about it and talk. And I'm like, Mom, shut up. I don't want to do this. But she's like, well, were you listening to this kind of music? Were you reading this kind of stories? She wanted to know an external reason why her
Mhm.
perfect daughter wanted to do that. Because I was the only thing left in her life that was normal, and that's a big responsibility to put on a 15, 16-year-old kid, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, so that's where I can recognize the difficult panic type depressions starting. And then I ended up breaking up with that particular very toxic boyfriend, and I became friends with a guy who was really respectful. He treated me like I had a brain, like I was worth more than just whatever he wanted to do and all of that stuff. And my outrageous, happy, outgoing personality came back with a vengeance. And so for about 3 years, I didn't sleep for more than 3 or 4 hours in a night, unless I would crash and then be like totally, I couldn't get out of bed except to go to work, go home, go back to bed. But that would only be for a couple of days. But for most of that few years, I was just running on a high. It was like I was you. I don't know how many of your watchers or my watchers even would know what it's like to be just tipsy enough to feel like you can do anything, not tipsy enough so you're off balance or whatever, but just you have no inhibitions. Everything sounds like a good idea.
That's what I was gonna say, like, you have no
Exactly.
inhibition. Yeah.
That's what my version of a high would look like. Um, I'm going to draw out kind of what bipolar looks like for you.
Okay.
Okay. So, let me grab some markers so they're easier to see. Okay. So, everybody has a typical. I hate the word normal, but everybody has kind of a typical, right? Little ups, little downs. That's the way life is. Then we have psychotic lines. So this is where you break from reality. Okay.
Okay.
What is like those scary dreams you have at night? You think that's actually happening. Okay. That's the break from reality, that type of thing. So when you have bipolar type 1, this psychotic line is way too high. Okay. When you have bipolar type 1, you will have gone down into depression, which is what's below the typical, and you will have gone up into the psychotic area. Okay. And you will spend time here. And up here is incredibly dangerous because that's where you think you can fly. That's where you think that you are, oh boy, you feel like you are Mary Magdalene. Like there's a lot of religious types of hallucinations and the word has escaped me, beliefs that are false, but you are absolutely convinced that they are true. Okay. Delusions, that's the word I'm looking for. Okay. So that's way up here. Now down here is depression. Down here, this line down here is where you are convinced that demons are coming out of your faucet in the kitchen. Like you really think that Ghostbusters actually would happen, that kind of scary stuff, right? Where I lived, so this is bipolar type 1. It's BD, not BPD. BPD is borderline personality. BD, because bipolar is one word. So bipolar disorder type 1. Okay.
Mhm.
For me, I have been down here and, whoop, too far. In this area. Hang on, I'm going to get rid of that because it would annoy me. There we go. Okay, so this is called hypomania. Sort of like hypodermic, like just under the skin. So that's the needle you get. So this is manic. This is hypomanic, so just below. And down here, everything is just a good idea. You know, driving really, really fast is simply a good idea. You're not psychotic. You're not outside of reality. It's just a really good idea. And that's where I lived for years and years, is in this area. And every now and then I would have a crash and I would go down here for like a couple of days. And sometimes the down here was really low, but it would be a short time. And then I would be back up in this area again. Okay. So I did that for quite a few years. And that's bipolar type 2. Okay. So there's bipolar 1, bipolar 2. And then there are the type of people. Sorry, I have to do this down here because it's hard to do. Then there's the type of people who do, well, I'm going to use a different color, who do what's called rapid cycling. So they will be lower than typical, higher than typical, lower than typical, higher than typical, lower than typical, higher than typical, quickly, like within a day or two. Sometimes it is within an hour or two. Okay. And this is called cyclothymic, which simply means rapid cycling, rapid up and down. Okay. Sometimes they will go up past the psychotic break, but not always. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they only go up to here. So they're still cyclothymic because they are going up and down fast, but it's a different type of cycle.
And is the low, the depressive part, is that like what we normally think of somebody being depressed, sad, blue,
Okay.
no energy?
A lot of that is very, very similar. Yes. So
Okay.
you have to understand the difference between depression and being sad. Okay. There's depression, there's being blue, there's sad, like something has upset me. And then there's grief. So for example, if you are feeling, if you're feeling sad because you lost your job, right? And that really upsets you. It's totally legitimate and it should upset you. That's not depression. That's grief. Okay. It may last for a long time. That feeling of down may last a long time. And it may become a chronic depression because then on days where everything is fine, you can't dig your way out of that feeling. That's when it becomes chronic depression, but it doesn't necessarily become clinical depression, which is the chemical difference. Okay. So chemical depression, everything in the world is good. Your children love you. Your dog's not peeing inside. You just passed your exams. You just so on and so forth. Everything's going great. You've got a good marriage, good family, good everything. You just got a raise. But you feel worthless. You feel listless, like you have no energy, like what you were talking about. All of those typical depressive type signs that people would say, that's when it happens, but there's no reason whatsoever for it to happen. And
Okay.
on top of that, it has to last for 2 weeks or more steady. Okay, not just I'm down for a day or two, and then I'm up for a day, and then I'm down for another day or two. There has to be no more ups, okay, for at least 2 weeks.
So it's definitely, one is more a reaction to
Absolutely.
something that's happened, and the other is a chemical imbalance.
That's right.
Is just causing the mood disorder.
That's exactly
okay.
That's
Because
exactly right.
And I think I mentioned this one time too, when I first got diagnosed as being diabetic.
Yep.
The doctor asked me, if I was depressed.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I didn't really think I was. But he said that when you have a chronic illness that requires, daily maintenance, it's very easy to get depressed.
Absolutely.
And that all of the different chemical things going on can cause you to become depressed. And so I was started on a very low dose antidepressant.
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, almost 30 years later, I still take that.
Yeah.
I've never tried to get off of it. I've never really thought, well, gee, maybe I don't need it anymore.
No.
Maybe I should try to get off of it. I'm kind of like, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
That's exactly right.
It's like we're coasting along. Okay.
That's what I tell
But
people.
I do understand the difference between just that feeling sometimes from the illness and then the emotional side of being depressed.
Yeah.
Because of circumstances or situation,
Absolutely.
things that have happened.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people, when you say you're depressed or that you take an antidepressant, they don't understand that there are two distinctively different.
Well, and everybody reacts to those two distinctly differently. Like I'm not a crier when I'm depressed. When I'm depressed, I am exhausted. I just can't. Like, you know how you go through life and it's just like, I cannot get out of bed. I cannot brush my teeth. I can barely go to the bathroom if I have to. I just can't. And that is what my depressions look like. Some people are crying all of the time and having panic attacks and anxiety attacks and that kind of stuff. That takes a different medication because that's a different chemical that's not working. And when you cannot get around those things, that's when it becomes chemical, and that's when you need a doctor. Therapy, like talk therapy, can be excellent, but it's not enough for some people. For me, it's not enough because my chemistry is off.
Right.
And as much as, there's a lot of people here that I haven't said hi to. Hi. But there's a lot of people who don't realize that just because you have a feeling doesn't mean you have a diagnosis, right? Even for being like with bipolar, even feeling up here and doing this, if you're up here and you're doing this like for a day or for a week, that is not an illness. That is, you're having a really amazing time. Okay.
Yeah.
For the manic area, for all of this stuff, that has to last 8 to 10 weeks or longer, nonstop. Okay. So
see, and I've had a period, and it only lasted a day or two.
Yep.
But I said, because my daughter was like, something's not right with you. And I said, it's like, I don't even like myself.
Yep.
It's like, I don't even want to be around myself.
Yep.
And I don't know why. I don't know what's gotten me upset or, what it is I'm feeling. But I just knew I didn't need to be around anybody.
Yep.
And it's happened to me twice over the years, but it only lasted a day or two. And then I was like, well, that was odd, but it's not, I don't feel that way anymore.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. That would be considered depressive because there's no reason, but it is not a chemical depression because it doesn't last. But you're also on an antidepressant. See, I'm on my mood stabilizers. I'm on 5, 6, maybe 7 psychiatric medications. Okay. I can tell you what they all are and I can tell you what they all do. So it's not just one medication to counteract this medication, which counteracts this medication, right? That's bad. Don't do that. But talk to your doctor first.
Right.
But I am still stable. I'm one of the most boring patients my psychiatrist has because I am stable. We rarely, like we're talking maybe once every 2 or 3 years, have to adjust my medications. Okay. So I'm very boring. But I do still have days where I am way, way, way up outside of normal. I hate that name. Normal is a setting on a dryer. It is not a mood. So it's outside of typical. That's a better word. It's outside of typical. Sometimes I'm low outside of typical, but they only last for a couple of days at a time. There was a period of time, though, in 2015, the end of 2015, I had a complete nervous breakdown. It literally broke my brain. I was not a crier before that. Now I'm a crier. If I get upset about something, I am tears just all over the place. Not cool. Just for almost a full year, I was in bed 18 to 20 hours a day for almost a full year. I wasn't necessarily sleeping the whole time, but a lot of it I was. And ever since then, I sleep 10 to 14 hours every day. And that's just the way my brain broke. And I can't hold down a regular job. I don't have a job with a pay stub and all that stuff. I'm an artist, so I painted these. I painted that. So I'm very creative. Now,
and that may be a myth. And I think, most of us, if we have not known someone who has had situations like that and been treated for them, and, we don't know what it really looks like for them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's different for everybody.
It is.
But when you see it portrayed in a movie or on television, it's always the person has gone off their medication.
Oh, I know.
And they're either up for weeks at a time or they can't get out of the bed for weeks at a time. And I don't know how realistic that is.
Well, if you watch the movie Silver Linings Playbook, that's a really good example of what bipolar is like. Okay, as long as he's on his meds, life is stable. Not perfect, but stable. As soon as he goes off his meds, things aren't making sense. He has beliefs that are not based in reality. Those are called delusions. And they are outside of what, when he's on his medications, he understands, this is one thing. This isn't reality. And I know that. But when he's off his meds, he believes the non-reality. Okay. That doesn't mean he's dangerous. In fact, less than 2% of people not on medication for their, usually for schizophrenia, they're more likely, less than 2% of people who are on with schizophrenia are violent. Less than 2%. So when you see on the news, mental health must have been an issue. No, people are just jerks. Evil is just evil. Mental health had nothing to do with it. People who, truly do have a mental illness and they have gone unmedicated, they can be. But when you look at the percentage of people who are not in the mental health realm, I guess, people who are considered mentally healthy and are simply evil, there are more of those people than people with a mental illness who do evil things. Does that make any sense to you at all? The way it's
Yes,
portrayed in
yes.
media
And
is
I
just
think,
terrible.
yes. And it's always, you always hear, oh, this person is a psychopath, or this person is psychotic, or and
Psychopath,
it does
psychotic,
make
and
you scared.
sociopath are three different things, and they are
Yes.
real.
But you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? They always
Yep.
portray it as being violent
Yep.
and totally, unpredictable, to where, you're not safe around this kind of a person.
Right. Right.
And unfortunately, I think that gives a lot of people the wrong impression of what
Absolutely.
life is really like for people that, suffer with
Absolutely.
different problems. It's And like you were saying about normal and typical, there that would be totally different for me and for you and for everybody else, what we
Absolutely.
consider to be normal. And it's hard when you feel like, okay, I'm being normal, I'm being typical, I'm not having real highs or real lows, I'm just kind of
Mm-hmm.
maintaining. And then
Mm-hmm.
someone else looks at your behavior and thinks, oh, well, they have a problem, they're doing this or doing that, because it's
Yep.
different than how they may be reacting to,
You're right.
different situations. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's true. It's just
Right.
the difference, of people. And it's kind of the same thing with my family telling me, you're overly emotional, you're overly sensitive. Well, I felt like the people who would tell me that were actually very cold-hearted and didn't show
Yes.
emotion, and really didn't,
Yes.
So it's kind of like, how can you judge where my emotions are at when,
Yeah.
to me, it seems like you don't even have any, you know?
Yeah.
So of course we're going to be different from each other, because,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that, everybody has to just learn how to give people a little slack, that everybody's normal is going to look different for each person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a good example, not that my son-in-law doesn't have any diagnoses,
Mm-hmm.
um, but he is a very quiet, introverted, intellectual kind of person.
Yep.
He does not really deal with a lot of nonsense and small talk and chit chat and things like that. Now, if there's a conversation and he's interested in it and he wants to talk about that, or he has an opinion about it, he will talk to you about it.
He's in it
But
like a dirty shirt.
yeah, but if you just start up a conversation, talking about something, off the wall that he could care less about, he's not going to say a
Yeah.
whole lot. He's just
Oh,
going to
yeah.
sit there. He's going to take it all in what you're saying, but he's not going to show you anything
Yeah.
of how he feels about it.
See,
And that
that's
was
not
a
a
very,
mental health thing. That's simply a personality thing.
yes,
And
and
people
it was
will
very
equate
difficult.
personality disorders with mental health disorders,
Yes.
which are
And
different.
it was a very difficult situation for me in the beginning of our
Mm.
relationship, because I couldn't read him. I couldn't get a sense for who he was or what kind of person he was, because he showed so little of himself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm over here, like, overly sharing and overly, wanting him to get to know me. And I'm having to, like, pull little bits and pieces out of him, you know. And
Yeah.
it was me that ended up having to change the way I approached that relationship, in order for me to understand that, he didn't have to be like I was in order for us to be able to get to know each other or to get along with each other. But I had to let him be who he was, just like I wanted him to let me be the way I was. But I think
Right.
that's where a lot of people, they see that something's different there, and automatically there's something wrong with you. That, they
Right.
can't communicate with you because there's something wrong with you, because it's not like them.
Yeah.
Hi, Elisa.
Somebody asked in the here, can you tell me if this can be hereditary or not? their propensity to have it can be hereditary, is very hereditary. So my dad had his mom had a lot of anxiety and depression. My dad had bipolar type 1. I have bipolar type 2. My children have their own mental illnesses. So it doesn't have to be the same mental illness, but the propensity to have, it's like having an addiction, right?
Right.
How many generations in your family have addictions to gambling, sex, drinking, drugs, whatever, maybe different things, but they're all addicted,
Addictions.
right?
Yeah.
The thing is with mental illness is that you need the trigger. Just because you have the genetics for it doesn't mean you're going to get the mental illness. And I'll show you an example of this. My oldest sister, she and I grew up together. She is 3 years older than me. She and I were both abused. She and I had the same parents, the same everything. Genetically speaking, similar. The one with the mental illnesses was my dad's side of the family. Now we have a sister who we only found within the last couple of years. And she was my dad's daughter through a different woman. She's only 4 months older than me.
Oh.
So, yeah. So she went through life in a totally different environment, in a totally different family, totally different everything. She wasn't abused. She wasn't put through like all of the stuff that we were put through.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have a mental illness at all, but she has the same genetics.
She has the same chance of getting one. And what
Exactly.
and is there ever a cure? Is there ever, once you have a mental illness, is there ever?
It depends on the mental illness.
Okay.
Bipolar, schizophrenia, anything psychotic. Bipolar and schizophrenia in particular, no cure at all. There's treatment.
Yeah.
And you can have a good life. You can have like looking at me, would you say that I look like I'm mentally ill?
No.
I
was very shocked actually the first
Yeah.
time I heard you say that, because I was
Yeah.
like, this is where
She's
my
so normal.
perception, where my perception of what mental illness looks like,
Yeah.
having seen it portrayed in movies and television,
Exactly.
and not really ever having anybody that I knew closely to actually see it, for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, but then again, too, like you said, you're stable because you're on medication, but you
I'm on
probably
medication. I see my psychiatrist. Like I do everything you're supposed to do. And there are some people who do everything they're supposed to do, but they don't have the stability that I have. God has blessed me in so many ways. And I believe that I have been blessed this way so that I can come and talk to people like yourself, like to those in the chat, like all of these people in a way so that they can understand that, mental illness looks different for every person. There are people who will have a mental illness and I will be able to see fairly easily that they do, and the rest of the world won't, just because I know the tiny little differences.
Yes.
It's not a big deal. It's just I notice it and I recognize it from myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah. If you're happy and you know it, shake your meds. If you're happy and you know it, shake your meds. Yeah. So we have a lot of fun with that.
You said earlier too that there's a difference between someone's personality
Absolutely
and a mental illness. Talk a little bit more about that. What?
Okay.
Yeah.
There are cluster B personality traits. Okay. I'm just going to address this for a moment. One person had asked the name of the movie is called Silver Linings Playbook.
Yeah, I put it in the
movie I was talking about. Okay, good. Another really good one, if you want to learn about schizophrenia, for example, is Writing on Bathroom Walls. And it's this young person's living through life, trying to cope with the idea of schizophrenia and their treatment and stuff. And I believe they're in high school. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard it recommended a lot. And now I cannot remember what I was thinking. Personality disorders.
Cluster B personalities.
Yeah. There's a book called the DSM-5,
Yes.
Diagnosis and Statistic Manual, Volume 5. Okay. So what that is that's basically the dictionary and encyclopedia of all the world's mental illnesses and personality disorders and everything like that in a book. Okay. Now, the DSM-5 has something called Cluster B personality traits. Now, those are personality traits, not mental illnesses. A personality trait is if you freak out at the drop of a hat, if you are super insecure, if you are really high tempered, if you're really high temperament, like just, maybe you don't have a mental illness, but you're just you're the squirrel of the group, right?
Yeah.
That's a personality trait. That is not something that needs to be treated. It's not something that needs to be medicated. But if it gets in the way of your life, it does need therapy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So people will hear of something called, I've heard it more in the last 5 years than I have in the however many years I've lived before that, is borderline personality disorder. Okay. And this is what BPD is. Oh, by the way, I'm a teacher. Can you tell? So borderline personality disorder is an actual disorder. It can look like somebody just being attention seeking. So are you really that upset about something? Well, nobody gets that upset about something. People who have borderline personality disorder have an attachment disorder where they are always afraid of being abandoned, major fear of abandonment, but they'll push you away just to say, see, I knew you were going to leave me, but they'll do all the pushing and stuff because that's what they're expecting. That's a personality trait that is learned over time. Mental illness will happen because it's chemical. Personality traits are learned over time. Okay. Does that help make a difference between them?
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter's best friend has borderline personality disorder, and I have been threatening to have her on my channel for so long. I really need to have her on because she is really open about it. She's very self-aware. But the home she grew up in was not a safe place to have a mental illness. She had to come to my house to be safe. So I'm her other mother, the one that was safe to be around.
Yeah. So when someone can have personality traits and a mental illness as well. Yeah. And then some, I think, because I don't think if you've not been through some sort of abuse or trauma or something like that, I don't think you can understand someone who has.
I agree.
As easily. And so I think people who haven't really experienced anything like that it'll be hard for them to understand why people do things that people do. Now,
and you don't have to have been through the same crap as me in order to get a mental illness. You can't say, oh, but you've been through nothing. Why would you think you have a mental illness? Well, let's see, because this, and this have been going on in my life since I was 10, Right. Just because you haven't had all of the triggers doesn't mean, like the stress of moving from one house to another. For some people, that's enough stress to trigger a mental illness. So it just
Yes.
depends on the person and their personality.
And I think people, when you talk about
Hmm.
stress, I think people don't realize that even something you see as a good thing and a happy thing, like getting married, for
Yep.
instance, can be so
Yep.
stressful.
Your body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress. It
Good
just
stress and
doesn't know.
bad stress.
And
No, right.
so what I've tried to help people say is, like, I have a very, very good friend who has borderline personality disorder. She has panic disorder and anxiety disorder. She doesn't really have depression necessarily, but she has times where she is depressed. Okay.
Mhm.
But one thing that I've helped her say, and this is what I'm saying, words make a difference. What you say out of your mouth goes into your ears, goes into your brain. So what you say out loud, you have to
Right.
think it, say it, and then you'll hear it. That's 3 different processes right there. Okay, so when you
Right.
say something out loud is, oh, that's exciting or that's scary, it's the same thing. Your body reacts exactly the same way. It's the same chemical reaction inside your body. So instead of saying, oh, I'm so scared, I'm so nervous, just say, oh, I'm so excited, because that's exactly what's happening to your body. Is the chemicals are
Right.
literally, by definition, exciting, which just means moving more in your body. So I'm excited means the same thing physically as it does to say I'm nervous. But in our
Right.
in our culture and stuff, excited usually means something happy, right? So that's where our
Right.
brain goes.
Right.
So your body is going
Right.
to feel the same way regardless, but our brain is what's going to be different. One of the best pieces of advice one of my first counselors gave me was, when I am in the midst of a depression, watch a movie, watch a TV show or whatever that's absolutely stupid funny. Not something like a rom-com, not something, if you like horror movies, if you like romantic comedies, if you like whatever, not those. Doesn't matter, not those. You're supposed to watch
Mhm.
something stupid like Three Stooges, like Jim Carrey in almost anything, like Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean is fabulous because it doesn't matter what culture you are, physical humor is physical humor. And you will not
Yes.
be laughing, because I'll be watching it and I'll be going, okay, yeah, that was funny. Yep, I can recognize that that was funny. My face is doing nothing, but the chemicals inside my brain are changing. And that's the difference, is what's coming in your brain has to change before the actual brain will change. So things that will help you, for example, if you are in a depressive state, if you're in an anxious state, if you're in that kind of stuff, usually, not always, but usually some sort of physical stimulus will help to interrupt the process. So sometimes, when you're upset and you just need a hug, you just need that, like you can feel in your chest, you need that hug. That's the physical stimulus
Right.
that'll change the chemical in your brain, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's just such a shame that we're not able to take some of that stigmatism,
Yeah.
off of people who have, because people would share a lot
Oh,
more
yes.
and try to help people to understand
Hmm.
what it's like for them if they didn't feel like they were going to be looked at in a
Absolutely.
negative light, you
Yep,
know.
absolutely. That's actually, I've been working with the Schizophrenia Society since about 2011. And I go around, especially to school groups. Sometimes they're to groups of nursing students, sometimes it's elementary school, high school, whatever. Sometimes even to the police force, I will go and I will tell my story. I love going to the women's shelter, um, and telling my story of my journey with mental illness. And people will look at me and say, what do you mean you have a mental illness? What do you mean you grew up in an abusive household? What do you mean your dad was a mean alcoholic? Like, all of these stereotypes of what you should look like,
Look
having
like,
been through
yes.
yada, 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 you know, making some of the choices that I did when I was a young adult, I would not People would not look at me and say, "Oh my goodness, you were nearly a hooker." I was literally one date away from being a prostitute when I was in my 20s. I'd have been 19 at the time. I was on a date with a guy, and being in a high, everything's a good idea. Remember, that's why you end up with a lot of intimate issues. So cheating on your boyfriend, you don't see it as cheating. You just see it as, oh, but this other guy, look, right? But this other guy wanted it too. So, and that's not such a bad thing, because look, I'm cute, so it's all of that. So I was on a date with a guy, and I was treating him the way I normally would my boyfriend or whatever. And he's like, "Wow, you are so nice. I really like my girls clean like you." Tell me what that phrase means to you.
Well, I would take it as meaning that you were not used up or trashy or something
That's a
like
large
that.
part of it. But the phrase "I like my girls to be" means he's got a group of girls. He grew up, when this guy was growing up, his sisters were massage parlor attendants, let's say. And that's where he grew up, is in a massage parlor. So had I decided to go on another date with this guy, I could almost guarantee that he would have offered me drugs. Being in a hypomanic state, I would have said, "Sure, that's a good idea." And I'd have done it. I'd have gotten hooked, and I'd have been one of his girls. Yeah. So when I can talk to these women at women's shelters, domestic abuse shelters, I can say, you know what? First of all, you guys are really brave. You guys are really strong. And I know that because my mom didn't know she could leave. You left. You got out of that. You're strong. And they're like, "What do you mean your mom?" My mom. And I tell a little bit about my family, right? My mom didn't know she could leave. So she didn't until he was arrested. Okay. Well, do I look like somebody whose father got arrested for sexual abuse? No. Exactly. I am not your typical poster child of looking like things are wrong. I am your poster child of thinking things are pretty much average. I am one of the best maskers of anybody I know. And when I say I'm a masker, some people don't know what masking is. And that is simply putting on a brave face, no matter what.
Yes.
And I mask so naturally, I don't even know when I'm masking. To the point that my body will actually freak out and my back will spasm to the point that I can't walk. Or I will have a cough. There's a tickle in my throat that hits right about here. And it is acid coming up from my stomach and hitting about here. And then I cough and cough and cough until I can't breathe anymore. Or there's a number of different symptoms I will have when my body's experiencing anxiety, but my brain hasn't clued in yet that I'm anxious. So I have to go, okay, what's going on here? What's wrong? Why am I anxious? So I've had to learn to stop and think about it, because I mask so well. It's not even second nature. It's practically first nature by now. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody has got stories of their childhood and things that, they went through and different things that you learn to survive.
Yes, absolutely.
Basically, that I think there's a lot of things that we could just learn to live with.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of. you
Oh yeah.
know, to where, okay, maybe I'm never going to have that life where everything is
Nope.
good. So maybe I just need to learn how to live with it, you know, with things not being
That's right.
perfectly
Yep.
good, you know. And at least for me, I've spent a lot of time not being my authentic self
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because of feeling like I wasn't allowed to be my authentic
And
self, that I
sometimes,
had to try to be the person that they wanted me to be.
sometimes feeling like you don't
And
deserve it, right? You
well,
don't feel
yeah.
worthy.
And I think after a while you don't know who you
No, that's
are.
right.
I mean, it's like you know who you choose to be, but to say, like for instance, when I got divorced and I was moving into my first apartment totally by
Mm-hmm.
myself, I didn't know what I
Right.
wanted to do with my apartment. Or people would ask me, do you want to go see a movie? What kind of movie do you like? And I'd be like,
I have no idea.
well, my husband liked this kind of movie, or my daughter liked this kind of movie, you
Yeah.
know and so I was always trying to please whatever my husband or my daughter wanted.
Yep.
So who cares what kind of movie
That's
I
right. It
liked?
doesn't matter.
I would watch whatever they wanted to
Yeah.
watch. And for me to be able to say, well, let me think about it. I'll have to, figure out what it is I do like about
Mm-hmm.
things. And I spent so much time trying to make sure everybody else was happy and everybody else got what they wanted, that I didn't care if I was
Right.
happy. I didn't care if I got what I
Right.
wanted. I felt like I was doing my job, especially as a daughter and as a wife and a mother,
Mm-hmm.
by giving everybody else what they wanted before I gave myself what I
Yeah.
wanted. And so now, I guess because I am in my 60s and I am by myself, it's very easy for me now to say, I don't have to please anybody
No.
else anymore. You
Yeah.
know, I can go ahead and I can figure out what it is that I like
Yeah.
and then do what I want to do to please
Yep.
myself. And it's really been very um,
Mm-hmm.
freeing. And I'll mention, like, about creativity. I was always, if I did something, I had to be the best at it.
Right.
I had to get straight A's. I had to, you know. So if there was something that I really didn't know how to do, or I wasn't very good at it, I never would give myself the chance to try to get better at
Exactly.
something.
Yep.
It was like, nope, I can't do
Yep.
that. And so I would say it, I mean, just as easily as I would say, my name is Echo, I would say, I'm not a creative person. That is probably the biggest lie that I've ever told
Yep.
anybody, and especially told myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I was not a creative person,
Yep.
because I am a creative person. But to be creative, you have to take
You
risks,
sure do.
and you have to be willing to have other people's opinions be different than your
Yep.
opinion, you know and that was too much to have to deal with. It was just easier to say, no, I'll do what you want to
Yeah.
do. Then I don't have to, I can't be
Oh
wrong,
yeah.
because I didn't really make the decision. You made the
Mm-hmm.
decision. We did what you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do, not what I wanted to do. So that's one thing that I've tried really hard with my daughter, and even now with my granddaughter, that I don't want them to ever, I don't care how many hats they wear in their life, I don't want them to ever lose who they
Yep.
are as a
That's
person
right. Yep.
first. And then as all the other hats that you're going to, wear in life.
Yep.
Because for me, it seemed like I made that, like, I know I didn't make a conscious
No.
choice and say, I'm going to live my life this way because it's less painful than if I, tried to assert
Right.
myself. But in reality, you do make that
You
choice
do.
over
Yep.
time because you realize, oh, I did this and I felt rejected or I felt hurt by this.
So let's
So,
not
or
get
that
hurt
person
again.
was, wasn't happy or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's like, okay, so we're not going to do
Oh,
that
yeah.
again. And then after a while, it's like, who cares if you live or not? Because you're not really
Right.
living your life. You're just trying to facilitate other people's
Right.
lives for them to be happy,
Yep.
but not for yourself to be
Yep.
happy. And I think that could be very easy, especially for somebody with a mental illness, to just kind of slip into that it's easier to lose a little bit of yourself or pieces of
Mm-hmm.
yourself to keep things kind of
That
chugging
stasis.
along. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we spend too much time as a society waiting to be happy in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's always, when you get that raise, when you get that job, when you get married, when you get the boyfriend, when you have the baby, when you get the house, no,
Yep.
you got to be able to be happy no matter
All of those
what.
externals. That's right. Yeah.
And that's why I always say, happiness is a choice.
It
Because
is.
you can look at the same situation and you can either find the things that are positive and make you happy out of that situation, or you can find the negative things because they're both going to be there.
That's
You
right.
know, and it's just in how you're going to look at it and how you're going to allow yourself
Mm-hmm.
to live your life, whether or not
Mm-hmm.
you're going to um, do those things that make you happy, or if you're going to spend your time trying to make other people happy, which I'm not saying that everybody should be selfish and never try to compromise or, do
Right.
what's best for your children or, things
Yeah.
like that. I mean, sometimes as a mother, you have to make decisions that might not be what you want, but it's the best thing
Yeah.
for your child, so you do it.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
but I think I took it to an extreme that I would rather not have to even consider myself in the situation and just worry about what other people wanted and other people thought. And
Yes.
then it kind of couldn't be my fault then.
No. That's right.
Kind of like a protection type of
Yeah.
thing. It's like
It's a
it's
barrier.
scary. Yeah. And it's scarier to stand up for yourself and to, speak your mind
Mm-hmm.
than it is just to keep quiet and not make
Yep.
waves and just, go with the flow of
Yep.
things.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of situations in life that, like they say, everybody has an opinion, but you don't have to express that
Right.
opinion. You can have an opinion without saying anything about it.
What do you mean you
And
don't have to say it out loud?
yeah, no, I say it all in my face. People, they're like, "What's wrong
Yeah,
with
my
you?"
face has
It's like,
subtitles.
"Oh, nothing." Yeah, my face says what it's thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's just so many things that we do have to deal with in life that we could help each other to make life a whole lot better and easier than we do sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is because people are not educated with a lot of these, situations that people may be going through or dealing with, and they don't understand, especially, when somebody's having grief
Yeah.
or having trauma or, any number
The
of things
uncomfortable
that go
emotions.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then people are like, oh, well, they're a drama queen, or they just have too much,
Yeah.
going on, or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's not, yeah.
That makes it very difficult to open up, is when people are going to sit there and judge you for what you're saying without even listening to what you're actually saying.
Right. Right. And then a lot of times too, with me, I would find myself trying to explain why I felt the way I felt about
Mm-hmm.
something, but the person, they really didn't care how I felt or why I felt the way I felt,
Mm-hmm.
But I would feel like if I could just explain it to them, they would get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, um, okay, Nancy says, what is bipolar? I have this in my mental health record.
Oh, okay.
Okay, bipolar is what we've been talking
Yes.
about.
So, Nancy, this is bipolar disorder. And if you could tell me a little bit about yourself, I can tell you probably what type of bipolar you have. So, bipolar type 1, everybody has a regular up, down, up, down, up, down. That's typical. Bipolar type 1 will have had moods that are below typical and go up above the psychotic line. So you're outside of reality, but you don't know that you're outside of reality. Bipolar type 2 will have spent time underneath the typical, and they will have spent time up above typical, but not as high as psychotic. So I have had hallucinations, though, over the years, and I am on an antipsychotic to keep those from happening. But the difference between my hallucinations and somebody up here with this level of psychotic is I know that the hallucinations aren't real. Somebody up here does
Okay, and
not
they don't.
know
They think
that
it's
it's not
real.
real. That's right. It's the same when you go down
Mhm.
here to psychotic depression. Okay. The psychotic depression, you don't know that the demons flowing out of your kitchen faucet aren't real. You think they really are. You don't know that the bugs that are all over the floor aren't real. That kind of thing. So that's that. So I have bipolar type 2. My dad had bipolar type 1. And it was very difficult for us to. I have been psychotic outbreak after I lost my job in 2012. Absolutely. So having depression, if you've had depression and you've lived down here your whole life and you've had depression, or even if you've just been down here and you only get above the psychotic level one time, you have bipolar type 1. And that is simply because your brain broke to the extent that the chemical switched to a huge difference. And now that huge difference needs to be monitored and medicated. Okay. It doesn't mean that you've failed at anything. It doesn't mean that you could have done anything differently. I had I had a nervous breakdown in 2015 because I was being bullied at work. My boss was telling me that I didn't know how to teach and I didn't know how to do this and that and the other thing. He made me think that I was not a good teacher. He made me think that I couldn't do X, Y, Z of things that I could do with my eyes closed. But he made me think I didn't. He was gaslighting me. And that broke my brain to the point where I no longer could do, because my brain started to believe it. So having had a psychotic outbreak after you lost your job, that makes sense. And that's why they would say you have bipolar disorder. Even if you live normally in the typical zone or even in the depressive zone, you still will have to be treated for that chemical because the chemical has been switched.
And once it's switched, it
It
stays
stays
that
switched,
way.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand either. If it only happens one time.
Well, yeah. What a moron. Oh, my boss. Yes, I agree. My boss is a moron. I'm hoping that's who you're talking about as a moron. Yeah, no, he was just really, really awful. And apparently because it worked with me, he's been trying to do it to other people. I've had friends who stayed at that workplace and they're like, no, he's doing the same thing to this person and this person. And it's sort of working on this person, but not as much on this person. And it's like, oh man, he got away with it. Therefore, So yeah. Nancy, do you have any questions in particular? Because I can answer a lot of questions.
So after that happened, how did you, I mean, I know you go to a psychiatrist, but I mean, what all did you do to get back to where you are now?
Well, the reason I know it was a chemical problem versus a situational problem is because I was low for a long time. I went to my psychiatrist who didn't change my meds because she's like, this is a situational thing. This isn't a chemical thing. So we have to wait for you to get out of the situation before we deal with chemical. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted the drugs and I wanted to feel better now. But she knew better and she was right. So I did that. I went to counselors. I went to therapists. I went to all of these different things. Nancy, I'll tell you what schizophrenia is in a couple of minutes, okay? Because that's a very good question. Good question, Indigo. Okay. So I went to a particular therapist who was patently unhelpful. And I saw them like for 3 or 4 weeks in a row. Life wasn't getting any better. And then literally one day, boom, I wake up and life is good again. No reason for a change whatsoever. None. That's chemical. And that's where I had a different diagnosis, I guess, than some other people, which would be completely situational. So for example, you lose your job, you're sad about it. You're sad about it for 2 years because you still haven't been able to get a job because look at the economy, look at yada, 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 yada. Finally, you get that job. And after about a month and a half, you feel, okay, I'm actually going to stay here. And that depression starts to go away. That's grief. That's not depression, even though it has lasted a really long time. Right? So that's where knowing the difference between a chemical imbalance versus a situational awareness, there's somewhere in the middle that you want to be. So for me to get out of what was my depression, it just was time. And that was it. That's all I could do. It just was literally waking up one morning and going, I can breathe. Felt good. So bipolar psychosis and schizophrenic psychosis. Let's discuss first of all what schizophrenia is. Schizophrenia, I'm going to do another drawing here. Okay. Here we have bipolar disorder and depression is a mood disorder. Okay. Schizophrenia is a mind disorder. So when I'm talking mind, I'm talking cognition, the way you process information in your brain. Okay. So that if you have pure schizophrenia, nobody has pure schizophrenia. If you have pure schizophrenia, it's 100% how you process things in your brain. If you have pure mood disorder, it is only your mood and nothing else. More people will have pure mood disorder than will ever have pure schizophrenia. In here is where we would have mood, mind together. So it's bipolar disorder, schizophrenia together. Okay. And this is called schizoaffective disorder. So it can be bipolar and schizophrenia, or it can be depression and schizophrenia. Okay. And that's this little section in here, kind of in the middle. That's called schizoaffective disorder. The space between that actually should be a lot bigger. So with schizophrenia, basically the way I said that if something's going on and it just seems like a good idea, then it's just a good idea. Let's do it, right? With schizophrenia is you're waking and you don't realize that what's going on around you isn't real. 90% of people with schizophrenia will be somewhere in this area with mood disorder and mind disorder. Okay, they'll be closer to the mind disorder than the mood disorder. People with bipolar type 1 will be more toward the mood disorder, but will also have mind disorder. Okay. And that's where my dad was. He had psychosis on occasion. So he lived in a realm that wasn't always reality. I have bipolar type 2. So I'm closer to the mind disorder, but I'm definitely on the mood disorder end of the spectrum. Okay, does that help?
So is it more likely if you have one diagnosis, you will have other diagnoses as well? No. Okay.
No, I asked my psychiatrist about that. I'm like, okay, am I going to get worse? Am I going to develop into bipolar type 1? Nope, I won't. Am I going to develop into schizophrenia? Nope, I won't. It's because of which chemicals aren't working and which receptors aren't working in my brain.
Okay. So if you're diagnosed as schizophrenic, you don't have to worry about it turning into bipolar.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Well, like I said, people with schizophrenia will have a mood disorder.
Yeah.
Because how can you live in this type of mind disorder and not be depressed about something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or have the up and down feelings when you're in a psychotic whatever's up here. How can you not feel elated? Well, that's bipolar, is the feeling of elation, the feeling of depression, all of that. So you will have a mood disorder. That's why I'm saying nobody really has pure schizophrenia. And I'm also going to comment about the wording that I'm using. Okay. I have bipolar. I am not bipolar. Okay. I have diabetes. I am not diabetes. My brothers-in-law have had cancer. They are not cancer. So when you talk person first language, it's the same way as I was talking about the way your mind works, goes from your mind to your mouth, to your ears, into your mind. Right? It's got that whole thing. And it's the same with breaking the stigma of mental illness. I have friends with schizophrenia, but I do not have schizophrenic friends.
Yes.
Right? I have friends with red hair. That's actually more personality than anything. Having red hair is more of a personality than it is a hair color, which is a joke that my husband and I have. Okay. Oh, Misha, nice to see you. Okay. Sending all love here. Love you, Misha. All right. Ooh, member only lives with giveaways. Nice. Okay.
Okay. Now we need to answer Indigo's question.
There is zero difference between psychotic break for schizophrenia, psychotic break for bipolar. It's psychotic break. Exactly the same.
Which means you do not know if it's real or not real?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Over the years, the first hallucinations that I used to have is I was working in a shopping mall and I would have to deliver garbage to the back, and there was nobody around. Like, we're talking dead, nobody around. And I would hear somebody at a distance behind me call my name, and I would turn around, nobody's there. I freaked out because I'm thinking everybody's going to think I'm crazy. I dare not tell anybody that this has happened, or they're going to take me in a little white jacket off to the hospital, which at that time they might have. But the second type that I can remember, and this still happens, is that I'll feel like there's a bug crawling on my arm or something like that. I'll look at the spot, see no bug, and the sensation disappears. You know, I have smelled things that aren't there, like toast or oatmeal. For some reason, I hallucinate breakfast. Don't know why. But my favorite hallucination, the best one ever, my husband and I were out for dinner at a Chinese food place. And you know how you order a number of different dishes and you try little bits of each? And so we ate some, and one of the things we tried was the lemon chicken. I'm like, honey, tell me, what do you think of this lemon chicken? He's like, oh, it's really good. I, though, was having the sweetest, richest milk chocolate you've ever had in your entire life. He got no more chicken that night. So, I mean, that's a taste hallucination, and it was wonderful. But I knew the difference between a psychotic hallucination and what I was experiencing is I knew it wasn't really chocolate. It tasted like it, but I knew that wasn't there. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I never thought about that you could hallucinate and know you were having a hallucination, or you could hallucinate and not
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what puts me down at this end of the mind part, is I know the difference. This is kind of the psychotic break area here, right? So my dad
Mhm.
had a lot of mood disorder, but he also experienced psychotic breaks on occasion, not regularly. Once he was treated, not at all. But yeah, so that was a little bit different.
So why are most people put into a facility? Is it to get their medication regulated? Is it to get them in therapy? Is it just to maybe watch them so they don't do anything to harm
All
themselves?
of the above. Yep. There's a lot of different reasons. The year that I couldn't get out of bed, if I didn't have the family that I do, I would have been in the hospital because I could not take care of myself. I just couldn't. But my husband took care of me. My two daughters took care of me. I have to say that I am just so grateful for my family. God has blessed me so much. And speaking of all that, you can have all of this and be as spiritual as you want to be. You can pray every day. You can give to the church. You can do all the good stuff. You can't pray away mental illness. Okay. My first psychiatrist was a lady I went to church with. Very good Christian woman. She did a study, an actual doctoral study about spirituality and mental illness. People with spirituality, didn't matter what kind, but people who believed in a higher being than themselves had always more than 80% of those people had better outcomes with their psychiatric treatment than people who didn't have a spiritual basis of any sort. So the fact that I do believe God, I trust, and I do have all of this going on. If you ever want to check out what I believe, go to my channel. It's right there, right in your face. Okay, sorry. I'm reading what Misha was saying. Okay. So yeah, it's one of those things where having faith is an excellent jumping point, but it's not the end all be all. Just because you have depression doesn't mean you don't have enough faith. Just because I have bipolar disorder doesn't mean I haven't prayed enough. Doesn't mean that I have sinned. Any of that stuff. What it means is the same way as I have diabetes, I have a chemical that's not working.
Wow. That's amazing, Misha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
have a misunderstanding or lack of understanding
Mm-hmm.
about a lot of things to do with both the personality traits and
Mm-hmm.
the mental illnesses. And I think that has stopped a lot of people from getting, the kind of
Yeah.
help or the kind of being in the
Yep.
kind of environment that they need to do as well as they could do. Um, and you're right. I'm sure there are some people of faith who believe you could pray it
Oh yeah.
away.
That girl, my daughter's best friend, that was her mom. She figured if you prayed it
Yeah.
away, if you rebuked Satan, if you bound the demons, if you did all of those things, it would just go away. If you just worked really hard, you could get up with it. And yeah, my channel is My Other's Keeper. It's in my name right down there. My Other's Keeper.
And it's pinned at the top of the chat, Nancy.
There we go. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, it was not safe for her in that house. It was actually almost spiritual abuse because mom was blaming her for not being spiritual enough, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. Yeah.
I want to tell you something. This is totally off topic, but it's something you and I have talked about before, about my daughter and her faith.
Yes.
This morning when I was over there at her house getting the baby and she was getting ready to go to work and everything. And she said, Mama, you need to pray for me today. And I said, really? I said, okay, what's going on? And she said, it's been a really bad week and the kids have, not been doing well and this and that. And she said, and I need you to pray for me. And I said, well, if you don't believe that prayer works or that who I'm praying to or whatever, then why do you want me to pray? And she said, because I know you believe it. And I know that your prayer work, I can tell when you do pray for me.
Because it doesn't just hit the ceiling.
I need you to pray for me. Yeah. And I was like,
yeah.
So are you telling me that you do believe that you do think there is someone to pray to, that I pray to, and that, prayer does work? And it was kind of almost like, I gave you that much.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I need you to pray for me.
I'm taking that step. I'm not going to take that step. Yeah.
Yes.
But what an open door. That's beautiful. Love it.
Yeah. And I told her, I said, I pray for you every day. I pray for her students. And I pray for them to get something out of their day and, and all of that anyway. But to have her to ask me and to feel like, okay, she knew going into it that it was going to be a hard day.
Yeah.
And that she wanted to make sure that I was going to pray about it for her.
That's wonderful.
So I said, okay, maybe, she isn't going to just come right out and say that she believes the same thing I believe, but it's not totally a closed
That's right.
situation there for her.
And the way you've been dealing with it has been working. You've been loving her.
Yes.
You haven't been bashing her over the head. You've just been loving her You've been giving her opportunities without being overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well done, Echo. I am so
Yeah.
happy for your daughter. So happy.
I was just so shocked. Because she said things before in passing,
Yep.
but like I had told you, a lot of times she'll say, God help me, or things like that. And I'm like, well, if you don't believe in him, why are you asking him to help you?
Yeah.
So on some level she
Oh, yeah.
does.
Absolutely.
She just doesn't have the relationship that I have yet,
Yep.
And then I forget what it was about my granddaughter, something. Oh, I know what it was. She has the little people,
Oh, yes.
the
Yep.
little Fisher Price little
Yep.
toys. And I would pick them up at yard sales all the time. Whenever I would see any of the little characters, I would pick them up. And so one of the bags that I had bought at a yard sale, it had a Moses and it had a Mary
Oh.
in the little people. And so I had, told her. I mean, I tell her things, but I haven't been like, okay, you have to
Right.
believe this or whatever,
Right.
But anyway, so my granddaughter is at that point where she wants to take her crayons and her markers and she wants to mark on things that she's not supposed to. And so my daughter and I were going through her toys and organizing them the other day. And my daughter said, my goodness, there's like 4 or 5 things here that she's, colored on with marker, And I said, well, we need to show her and let her know that anything that she colors on like that, she doesn't get to keep.
Right.
We have to throw that away because that's being destructive. And we only color on paper. So anyway, one of the things she had colored on was the Mary.
Oh.
The Mary had a blue dress and a white head covering. She colored the white head covering blue to match the dress.
That's fair.
She didn't color on her face or, I mean, you could tell why she colored
Yeah, absolutely.
it. And so my daughter said, if you're going to color a mark on them, you're not going to get to keep them. And she said, I'm not throwing Mary in the trash.
Ah.
And my daughter was like, well, so who is Mary? Who is Mary to you? Thinking she was going to say, Mary is Sally's, friend or whatever, She said, that baby Jesus is mama. And I wouldn't throw you in the garbage and I'm not throwing her in the garbage. And I was like, I think she gets to keep the
That's
Mary,
right.
even though
Mary's staying.
Mary is staying. But I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to get in trouble now. My daughter's going to be mad that she knows who Mary is, but she wasn't. She was like, okay, you have a point. I will let you keep her,
Yep.
But I haven't, tried to, I guess, cross that line because I do want that to come from my daughter.
Yep.
I taught her what I believe and I want her to teach her daughter what she believes.
Absolutely.
And if I can help her, do that, I will. But I don't want to put it in a way that because I believe you have to believe. I want her to believe because that's what she decides for herself that she wants to, So, but she knows that, I put out there that I'll pray for people and I do my devotions and, all of that. And she's okay with it. She's not like, you shouldn't do that, And she's like, that's you, that is part of you. So it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
But it just really shocked me because I was like, I have to be so careful because I don't want to push her away.
Exactly. Yeah.
And especially when I went through my divorce, it was like It was, and she was 17,
Mm-hmm.
and it was hard for me to actually, still parent her
Yeah.
because I didn't want to push her
Yeah.
away. And I'm like, you're 17, but you're not of legal age,
No.
to be an
No.
adult. You're still in high school. You're still a kid. I still have to finish raising you.
People of that age, I didn't
And
know. My girls knew because they learned this at school, but I didn't know that the brain physically does not quit developing until between 21 and 25. I didn't know that. When I was 18, I thought I was all grown up. I figured that I was as good as I was going to get. I had no idea. But my girls both know that, their brains, 21, 25, somewhere in that area, you got to keep things moving here. So, yeah.
yeah. But I was very scared because she had, this was her first serious
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend. He was already out of school. He had his own place. I mean, all I could think of is that, she's going to go and live with him, and I'm not going to have anything to do with her life,
Yeah.
and all of that. And I was so afraid to lose her too, since I
Absolutely.
lost my husband. And it was like, I have to still be the mom.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just say, okay, you're my friend now.
That's right.
It's like, no, I'm still your
Yeah.
mom, as much as, but I think a lot of teenagers go through that rebellious stage and where they don't think their parents know what they're talking about. She didn't ever really do
Neither did
that.
my
It was
girls.
more like, she saw what all I went through and everything, and she was like, yeah, no, my mom's not.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever really had that part of it, but I had to be very careful
Mm-hmm.
because even though my world was turned upside
Mm-hmm.
down and changed, it shouldn't have had to change her
Right.
world,
That's right.
you know. So it was, and then too, to try to get to know my son-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know he was going to be my son-in-law at the time, but I definitely didn't want there to be any kind of,
Hanky panky. Yeah.
conflict there with him, or
Yeah.
anything. And oh, I was like, this is too much, but we got through it, thank
Yeah.
goodness. And knock on wood, they're solid, and they're a good little family, and they love their child, and um, they work together
Mm-hmm.
to provide for her, and it's not like how some parents, they have kids, but they're not really raising them. They're
I
not really
know.
putting them
Yep.
first and, parenting
Yeah.
them. It's kind of like, well, I had them, but they're over here kind of doing their own
Exactly.
thing instead of,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm glad to see that my daughter's not. And it shocks me every day when she does things and I'm like, yeah, she was paying attention when I was raising her. She's making good choices with my
Yep.
granddaughter.
Yep. Well, I mentioned this to my daughter the other day. I'm like, don't you just hate it when you open your mouth and your mum falls out?
Oh,
She
God,
says, yeah, it
yeah.
happens to me all the time at work. Like, yay,
And it's
I made a
funny when
difference.
you hear it come out of them and you're
Yep.
like, what?
Yep.
And I used to say to her all the time, where'd you learn that? Who
Yeah.
taught you
That's so
that?
wise. I may have heard that before. Yeah. Yeah.
But we tease about my ex, because the baby loves him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most kids do love their grandparents.
They
They
do.
they don't know all their faults, like adults see all the
Right.
faults. Kids don't see
Yeah.
any of them. And so, she loves him no matter what he is,
If you take a look at Indigo's
and
comment, we love Mama Keeper. My mom comes onto my channel every
yes,
now and then, and she is so popular.
um,
She has no idea why. But yeah, she's Mama Keeper. My husband is Mr. Keeper. Yep. And Mr. Keeper just got home from his fishing derby. So, yeah. Have you ever heard of the organization
But
called
anyway.
Athletes in Action?
Athletes in Action. I don't think so.
Okay. It's an international organization where people get together and do sports camps for kids. And the sports camps can be soccer, hockey, baseball, football, whatever. But it's a sports camp, volleyball, whatever. And that's who was organizing this fishing derby this weekend. Is a friend of ours who is the I guess leader for Saskatchewan, like my province and the next two beside us, for that area for Athletes in Action. So he was able to go and do just some really good stuff today, having fun fishing and hanging out with people, and I didn't have to do it. Yep.
Well, that's good. It's important. And I try to stress that with my daughter that, you have to have your own hobbies, your own friends, your own thing to do, even though you will have things that you do as a couple.
Yes.
And you may have couples that you're friends with, but you still need to keep that.
You have to have some
self.
Word has escaped me. Autonomy. You have to have some autonomy where you are your own thing, and that's good enough. You don't have to be defined by your relationship with your other, right?
Yeah.
Too many, especially young women, have been told their whole lives, you have to have a man who is your number one in life, and so on and so forth. And that's just not the way it is. It really isn't. My husband is the number one man in my life, abso-smurfly. But no, he is not my number one end all be all of life. So
yeah. Well, when I was growing up back in the in the 60s and in the 70s, it was like we still hadn't evolved that women even really needed careers.
No, exactly.
You were going to be a wife and a mother, and the boy was the one that needed the education and all of that. And so that's one thing with my daughter. I said, you're going to college and you're going to get an education and you are going to have a career. Hi, Lucy. Welcome. I said, I don't care what it is that you decide to do, but you're going to have something.
Yeah.
And that was even way before I had, any inkling about getting divorced or anything. I just knew that the way that I was raised wasn't going to, be the right way coming along. And so then after the divorce, I was like, now look, okay, I believed, the husband controlled this and did that. No, you make your own money. I said, I don't care how you decide who pays what or, anything like that. But he needs to have his own money. You need to have your own money. Mm-hmm. Y'all need to, have your own credit and everything, because if something happens, God forbid, one of you passes away,
you need credit rating.
It doesn't have to be because of divorce. It could be anything. You need to have those things for yourself. And she already, even, with my 3-year-old granddaughter, she's like, I understand why you said those things. It's not that you don't like my husband or you think my husband's going to leave me or anything like that. You have to protect yourself. You have to look out for yourself.
That's right. And
he should be looking out for himself. Then you look out for each other, and then you look out for your family.
That's right.
But, my granddaughter is so smart. She can do anything she wants to do. Mm-hmm. There will be no career that child cannot handle.
Awesome.
She is just super, super, super smart. And my daughter today was playing with her on the tablet, they downloaded a adding and subtracting game.
Ooh,
And I said, well, she knows her numbers.
good.
I've taught her her numbers
Yes.
and her alphabet and things like that. I said, but I don't know if she can do adding and subtracting. My daughter said, just watch. And so my daughter would hold up how many fingers and show her, okay, and then you add one with it or you take one away or whatever. And she would count it out. Got it right. And
Awesome.
I said, that little girl has got a good brain on her shoulders. She's going to do well.
Not only that, but mom isn't limiting her. Mom's not
No.
saying, oh, she's too little to learn that. No, mom is showing her. Yeah. When my older daughter was in kindergarten, she had a cut on her finger or something like that. So she went to school with a Band-Aid and the teacher's like, oh, do you have an owie? She says, yes, I have a cut on my finger and I'm wearing a Band-Aid to keep bacteria out. She's like, what do you mean bacteria out? My daughter's 5. Keep this in mind.
Right.
Well, she says, well, what's bacteria? Well, bacteria is little bugs that get inside a cut and make it get all red and yucky, and it really hurts. And you can't see the bugs, but they really hurt. Because that's how I explained bacteria to her. Yeah. And the teacher pulled me aside at parent-teacher interviews. She's like, you got to know what happened here. She's like, nobody has ever told me in little kid language what bacteria is. And she said it perfectly. So basically, you teach your kids, they will learn it. And the Bible said so. Teach your children the way they should go, and they will not depart from it.
And when they ask you a question,
answer them.
Why would you take the time to think of something to tell them instead of telling them the truth? Just tell them what it is. I mean, they may not understand what you're saying, but then again, they very well, they will understand it.
Yeah.
But I don't understand that.
No, I tried to keep my girls age appropriate for certain educational things, like talking about mental illness. My girls knew from the time they were itty bitty that mommy has something in her brain that doesn't work very well. So I take medicine and it makes it all better. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then, now they're a little older. So mommy has something in her brain that doesn't work very well. Mommy takes medicine so it doesn't, so it doesn't get worse. Notice it's not making it all better anymore. So it doesn't get worse. Then they get older. If mommy doesn't take her medication, things can happen. Right. So it's just a little bit of information at a time at the right ages, talking to your kids about that person with one leg, that person with whatever. They start using that, it's not even going to enter their minds to use limiting words. Yes. Right? So we as a generation need to teach them as a generation. And that will make all the difference in the world. Oh, Yep.
Well, I'm glad that she, wants to learn things and picks up on things easily, because I was that way. My daughter was that way. Mm-hmm. And it would be probably harder on us if we had a child that had learning difficulties,
Absolutely.
We don't know how to deal with that, But
and that's the thing is we learn how to deal with it. We learn how to raise our own children because we were never parents before. What do we know? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm just really grateful that when my daughter was about 14 years old, maybe 15, she started babysitting a little girl. And she came to me when she was 15, 16, somewhere in that area. She's like, Mom, thank you for being a good mom. I'm like, you're welcome. What did I do? She said, you taught me how to deal with somebody with right? So my daughter has ADHD. My other daughter has ADHD. I have ADHD. None of us knew this until my daughters went to college. But
Wow.
What my daughter did know is how to treat somebody with ADHD like they weren't a bad person,
Yes.
right? So that, and she's like, you taught me to follow through. If I say something's going to happen, don't just keep threatening. See, I don't make threats in my house. I make promises.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if this happens, that is going to be the result right there.
Yes.
It's not a threat. You are going to be grounded. You are going to lose this privilege. You are going to whatever. This is really going to happen.
And I
my
think a
kids
lot
knew
of
that.
people think that kids have to be a certain age before they can understand that. You know, I mean, I can remember before she could even really talk, when I would say, "Oh, you lost that toy." You know, you were hitting it on the table, hurting the toy, so you don't get the toy anymore. You know, and even now, you know, she'll automatically know, "Oops, I crossed that line. You know, I'm gonna have to take a time out now," or you know, whatever. And she's funny because she'll say, "I know, I'm getting on the couch. Can you set the time?" It's like, "Yes, I will set you a timer, you little rotten thing." Hey, Mama Juju, welcome, welcome. Yeah, she's almost too smart for her own good because she knows when she does. And then when we ask her, "Well, why did you do that?" Because I wanted to. Well, the next time you better not want
That's
to,
right.
because
Change
this
your
is what's
mind,
going to happen
child.
to you. You know? Yes. Think of something else to do than that, please. You know. But I don't think we restrict her from a lot of things. You know, like she loves dinosaurs and she loves trucks and cars, but she also likes jewelry and baby dolls and, you know, books and whatever. And it's kind of like, you know, whatever. She has a rock collection, and one of her favorite things to do is take a spray bottle of water outside and spray the grass and the bushes and things like that, you know. Doesn't hurt a thing, you know, and she loves it. And then she'll sit there on the sidewalk, you know, just like enjoying nature, you know.
Oh, that's
And
so
I'm like, I am
wonderful.
so glad you like stuff like that. And we've never said, "Oh, well, you can't get dirty,"
Oh, I
or,
know,
you know.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And she'll say, "I want to go outside and I want to spray the grass," you know, and it's like, okay, and I want to clean my rocks.
Yeah.
Okay, you can clean your rocks, you know, whatever you want
go,
to do.
girl.
I don't care, you know, as long as you're having fun and you're doing what you want to do.
That's right. And as long as it's not hurting anything, feel free. I mean, kids are washable. It's, you know, they are meant to be little dirt magnets.
When my daughter was little, I can remember my pediatrician telling me, you know, she needs a little dirt in her life,
oh, yeah.
And I was like, "Dirt? No, this child's clean." He's like, "I could tell. She's very clean. She's too clean. You know, let her get down on the floor and play. Let her go out. Let her, you know." And I was like, "Oh, no.
Heaven forbid."
I mean, my daughter was, I mean, if she got something on her hands, I mean, she would come to you like, I'm sticky, you know, and like, let me rub it on you.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, okay, we corrected that, because with my daughter, I was like so protective of her skin. I didn't want her to get any cuts or scrapes or, you know, mosquito bites or, you know, anything. It's like, no, kids have to deal with the real world, so you have to let them, you know, be living in the real world. Set it in some make-believe world, you know, that isn't going to do them any good when they get older. It's going to only make things harder.
You're exactly right. Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we've been on here right at 2 hours.
2 hours.
Mary and I, the first time she came on, we were on for 3 hours. Ooh. And when she on last week, we were on for like 5.5 hours.
Dude, okay, I love you. You're
So I
wonderful,
said,
but no
we're gonna
thank
have
you.
to do-
That's a lot.
I said, we're going to have to do a marathon next time.
Do you know what? Actually, my daughter was giving me a great idea. It's called a sub-a-thon, so a subscriber-thon. And she wrote down what you do. So it's an endless stream. So it's a live stream with goals and actions to add to the length of your stream. So for example, if I get 5 new subscribers, I will stay on an extra 10 minutes. If I get 2 new subscribers, I will stay on an extra 5 minutes. And then have a legend visible so that there's like, this is what happens. This is the result. And then, yeah, anyway, so it's a really cool thing. I was talking about it with, who was I talking about it with the other day? We're saying that, you know, she needs to do it on her channel. I can do it on my channel. We can switch back and forth between channels. Who did I have on the other day? I had Keela. That's who it was. I was on with Keela of Mental Health Matters. And so we were saying, you know, that's a really great way we could support each other. You know, we can have on my channel, we can have all of your people come to my channel and we can talk and do whatever we're going to do. Then we can have all the people from my channel come to your channel. We can talk and do something different. Yeah. So it's not just going to be a rehash.
Right.
Then we could all 3 of us be at, say, Misha's channel, and she could teach us how to do something with AI. You know, and we just kind of build on each other. And we all have all of our people subscribe to the others.
Yeah.
And that is just a really great way to support each other, to expand our groups, and for us to expand our view of other creators, right? Because I don't go on all of my friends' channels all the time. I just don't. I don't have time. Yeah. So if I can do that in, say, a day or a weekend, I can say, okay, Friday night, 6 p.m., I'm starting it. And then at 7 p.m., like if nobody extra adds to my stream, then I'm done at 7 and we're going to here. But if I have people adding on to my stream, then we're going to wait till I'm done with my stream before the next person starts.
Right.
You know,
and have them in your stream so they'll know. Okay.
Yep. And you advertise it for like weeks ahead of time so people know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
I love it. She came up with that idea from a creator she knows from online.
Oh.
So yeah.
And I heard that really before where people say, you know, share this out. You know, tell your friends about it, share it on social media or whatever.
Yep.
And then if you get somebody new, you know, that comes in, then you can, you know, keep expanding on it from then. I've been reaching out to a lot of different channels and trying to help, you know, watch their videos and things like that. And I'm starting to see now where I'll have 1 or 2 new people popping in, checking me out because I've been on their channel. So now they're, you know, coming to check out my channel, which is good.
Yep. Absolutely. That's right.
But there's just so many channels that you can't be on every live and you can't support every person.
Well, I can support them by saying, you know what, friends of mine, if this interests you, go here. Take a look at this, right? I can't always be the one to physically be there. It's like, I would love to give to every charity. I don't have the money to do all of that.
Yeah, me neither.
But I can say, you know what? These are the charities that I do deal with. And these other charities are still awesome charities. If that is closer to your heart, then support this charity.
Right.
Right. So, yeah.
And I think everybody, especially everybody within the village, the channels are not identical, but they are relatable. You know, where something that would be talked about on one channel could very easily be talked about on another channel with another group of people.
Yep.
And move back and forth. So I think it's a great idea. And they were talking about doing a game night.
Yes.
And having the different channels, you know, host the game night different times.
Yep.
I would love to do that too.
That'd be great. Absolutely. I'd be all in on that one.
Yeah, just let me know whatever, anybody wants to do, because I love sharing people out, and
Yep.
trying to support people, and I really like meeting new people.
Me too.
And
Yes. Yep.
it's funny. I'll get somebody, and I'll like their videos, and I'll 4 or 5 videos, and then I'll be
Yep.
like waiting, like they need to put out another video. Why haven't they put out another video? It's like,
Well,
how
I'm on
often do you
every
put out a
day at
video?
2 o'clock in the afternoon doing a devotional. We
The
started in
only problem
December
with
with the Advent, and then I moved to Bible stories, and now we're going through Psalms. Next month, it's going to be Promises of God. And then the
the
month
only
after that, we're
problem
going
with
back to Bible
yours
stories.
is that it's at 3 o'clock my time. And
Mm-hmm.
3 o'clock my time is finishing up her nap
Yep.
time, and then getting her ready to go, either for mom to come and get her, or
Yeah.
for me to take her to mom. So a lot of times I'm on the road
Mm-hmm.
driving when you're
Well,
on.
replay works just as well. I'm
Oh yeah, I definitely watch you
exactly.
and Mary both. I'll watch a lot on the replay.
Yeah.
But come the end of May, I won't have my granddaughter every day,
Ooh.
because my daughter won't have school over the summer.
End
And
of May is
then in
summer?
the fall, yeah, they're out of school the end of May.
Wow.
So June and July is their summer. They go back to school the first part of August.
Okay, so we're off by a month. We are finished
Yeah.
school at the end of June, go back beginning of September.
Yes.
So yeah.
And in August, my granddaughter will go to pre-K. So she'll
Wow.
be there all day with her mom. So I won't have to babysit her all day. And
Nice.
so I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to do some volunteer work. I do want to do that, but I haven't figured out exactly what I want to do.
Right.
There will still be days that I will have to either pick her up in the afternoon, or when they have teacher work days and things like that, that I'll have to have her. But it won't be every day
Exactly.
like it is
That's
now.
exactly right.
So I will have a lot more free time to do what I do on YouTube, and I'm going to try to be able to do some kind of volunteer work too, at least one day a week or something. And then I already told my daughter I'm going to definitely talk to my granddaughter's teacher and let her know they need anybody for anything.
You're there.
Memorize my number.
Yep.
And I will come and I will do it.
Yep.
So,
oh, you could be class grandma.
Yeah, I'll be there to help out whenever.
That's wonderful.
They'll let me.
Yeah.
Which my daughter would love me to be class grandma in her room, but those kids are older, and that would be more like work. It wouldn't be like fun playing with kids. It would be like,
yeah,
actually, So I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would even like to volunteer at the hospital and just get to go rock the babies in the nursery.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I think is so worthwhile. That's something that,
yeah. I mean, I would love to do that,
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to be a foster parent, but I'm not set up to where I could do that. I don't have another bedroom or anything.
I don't have the other patience. I don't know that I could do that.
Mary gave me the idea about doing fostering for a pet.
Yes. Yes.
And so I may do that.
Yeah.
Later on, especially if something happens to my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting another dog, I may just do some fostering or something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My daughter teaches 3rd grade math and science.
There you go.
It's funny because she wanted to teach, when she was in college, she wanted to teach 1st grade reading and writing.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to do a year of student teaching. And there was one town in particular she did not want to go to.
Let me guess. That's where
and
she
one
teaches now.
grade she did not want.
Oh, okay.
No, but that's where they sent her for her student teaching.
Oh,
And
wow.
she did not want third grade.
Oh,
She had to go to the town she didn't want, and she got third grade, and she got math and science instead of reading and writing. But by the time that year was over, she had figured out that she wanted third grade and she wanted math and science.
oh,
And
wow.
that's what now she's taught that for 6 years now.
Oh,
So
wow. That's awesome.
it's so weird how you think you know what you want and what you're going to
We make
do.
plans and God
And
laughs.
then that's right. That's right. So, and her worst subject, which she got straight A's, but her least favorite, the least thing she liked to do was math.
Yeah. Yeah.
She could do it. She didn't have a problem doing it. It just didn't, her interest laid much more in reading and writing and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she just really was kind of like, nah, she could take it or leave it. She didn't really care about it. But once she saw what they actually teach in third grade,
Yeah. It's the
it was
interesting
things
stuff.
that she liked, that she wanted. She was like, I could teach that.
Oh, yeah.
I like that curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, but she's the grade chair of her grade. And so that's like a leadership position. So she, is the one that tells them all what they have to do. And now she's got her whole grade is teaching after school. They do it for like 2 months, 1 day a week. And it's for the kids that need extra help for the big test they have to take at the end of that school year. And so they wanted her to do it, and she said, oh, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
But so will the rest of my teachers.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of kids that need it. So she just pretty well told them, it wasn't negotiable that if you want to do it. It was pretty much like third grade is doing after school.
Yeah.
And she started out at one school and she was there for 2 years, and then she had her daughter, and then she moved closer to home or worked closer to home because she was commuting an hour one way.
That's a long way
to where she was. Yeah. And so she got the job where she teaches now, and found out she was going to have a male teacher as her partner teacher. And they both have 2 classes, and they switch them back and forth. And at first she was like, I don't know, I don't think I want to have to co-teach with the guy and everything. And I said, well, give it a try, you never know. Come to find out, it's a guy that her husband grew up with.
That's wonderful. I love it.
And he was like, I know your husband. And she was like, told her husband, and he was like, oh yeah, I know, he's a good guy, I know him.
Good.
And she loves him to death now. And she's like, if he leaves, I'm going wherever he goes.
Yeah.
And they work so well together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That that she just loves it. But I said, every time you say you don't want something to happen, that's exactly what you end up having to deal with. And this year they have the gifted kids. There's a large Spanish speaking as their native language population in this area. So they have the gifted students, they have the Spanish speaking students, and they have special ed students also. So they have all 3 of those. So they have been to different trainings
for sure,
for each of those things.
Yeah.
And so she said, I really don't want to have to do all 3 next year. Maybe they'll just give us, 2 or something, And I said, but you know what? You and Mr. Freeman have had all the training. Y'all have handled it. You work well together. The other 2 teachers have none of the training, have not had the experience. I said, I will almost guarantee you will have it again.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a good
Yeah.
thing, you
Yeah.
know, because you do have the education and the experience
Yes.
and you can do it, you know. So I said, you got to think about those kids, you know,
That's
they
right.
need
They
you to be
do.
able to do
They
those
really
things.
do.
And how she can like hone in on each kid and figure out what makes that kid tick to be able to do whatever, you know, to get them to behave and learn and they all love her to death. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
every time she gets frustrated or complaining about this, that, or the other, and I'll say, but you're exactly where you need to be.
And you're
You know,
where
you're
they
doing
need you to be.
exactly, yes, you are exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard. I know you get, you know, upset with the parents and, you know, you
Mhm.
get upset sometimes with the administration
Mhm.
because her administration, they're starting now to realize that they don't know everything that happens in those classrooms
Yeah.
like the teachers
Oh,
know,
yeah.
you know. So instead of trying to take a policy and implementing it, have a meeting with your teachers, you know, and talk about it
Yep.
because it may not be what they even need,
That's right.
you know. And she has learned how to use her voice and she's not disrespectful about it, but she will let them know that will not work
Mhm.
with this group of kids in this situation, you know.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, you never complain about something they want you to do unless you have an alternative.
That's right. Don't come at me with problems, come at me with solutions.
Have something that you think would work better and
Yep.
just see if they'll give it a try,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's what she does now. And she's like, you know, that was a really good piece of advice because everybody can say, this is a problem, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But to take the time and figure out what might work and what might get to the same end result, but maybe go about it a better way.
That's right.
So I'm glad that she does that she does speak up and doesn't just say, oh, well, you know,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
have to do what they say, you know.
I have no
And
choice.
she's not had a good run of administration
Oh.
either. It seems like, you know, every year there's a change somewhere along the line. And if they could, I think if they could ever get good administration that stuck with them, they could improve the whole school,
Mhm.
you know. But when you've got people who it's their first time in a position or like the one they have now, he's a brand new principal. This was his first year being a principal.
Oh boy.
And the assistant principal, it's her first year she went from being an academic coach to being an assistant principal.
Oh.
So neither one of them know how to work with each other,
Right.
yet alone know how to really do their actual jobs. And the principal they had before that, he was getting ready to retire. And so he was kind of just coasting.
Oh no.
You know? So he didn't really want to shake things up or try to make things better,
Yeah.
you know, because he was just trying to get his time in and get on out of there, you know. So
yeah.
But I keep praying that they'll get, you know, some good administration and they'll, you know, they'll do. But they were on some kind of a bad list whenever she first got the job there. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like for low test scores or some, you know, something. The kids weren't performing like they should or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've gotten off that bad list now.
Good.
So
that's good.
So that's good. She was like, even kids that you would not think could even learn and show improvement have improved.
Yeah.
So, and then too, last year, I think either this is the last class affected by the COVID, you know, being out of school and all that.
Oh,
Or
yes.
there for a while, the schools were shut down. They did the online learning,
Yep.
and a lot of kids in kindergarten and
Fell through
first
the
grade, they didn't get
cracks
their
and
fundamentals and stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
And so they were playing catch up with the kids. And then last year, this whole second grade team changed at the beginning of this school year. And that affects the kids too.
Does it
When
ever?
you don't have people that are used to that curriculum, that age of student working with the other teachers on their team and everything, it makes a big difference.
Does it ever?
And
Yeah.
so, my daughter, she said they better stay in second grade and do what they're supposed to, because those kids coming up to us, they need second grade. I was like, well, maybe you should go down to second grade and get them into shape. And she's like, oh no, I'm staying in third.
Yep.
Which I hope they'll let her. But like I tell her, you keep doing as well as you're doing, eventually they're going to say, we need to put her in a trouble spot and let her fix it.
Mm-hmm. You have to be careful of being good with what you do.
Yeah, she may not like that. But.
No, exactly. Well, my friend, I do need to go. I am so grateful that you brought me out here. Thank you so much.
And you let me know when you want to do it on yours, and we'll talk weight loss.
Absolutely. I am open most of March. So Tuesday or Thursday evening, anytime in March. Let me know.
Okay. I will let you know.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you on these YouTube streams.